She took the money. She signed the contract. She told herself it was just biology, just business, just survival. But then he walked through those hospital doors, and everything she thought she could control shattered. My name is Vanessa Adiz Cole, and I made a deal with the devil's grandmother. The problem is, the devil himself had no idea. And by the time he found out, I was already in love with him. Welcome to Afro K Chronicles. Stay with me, because this story is going to break your heart before it heals it. Vanessa Adiz Cole is 26 years old, and she has the kind of beauty that makes people do a second take in hospital corridors. She is Nigerian American, second generation, raised in Atlanta by a father who worked double shifts and still found time to read her bedtime stories about women who refuse to be small. She has her mother's cheekbones, her father's stubbornness, and a laugh that fills rooms. She graduated top of her nursing cohort, buried herself in student loan debt that follows her like a second shadow, and relocated to Seoul 2 years ago for a hospital exchange program that became a permanent posting when the Seoul National University Medical Center offered her a contract she could not refuse. Vanessa is not reckless. She is calculated, careful, the kind of woman who reads every clause before she signs anything, which is exactly why what she eventually did with the Han family contract makes no sense. Except when you understand what $60,000 of debt feels like at 2 a.m. when your father's dialysis bills arrive in your inbox. She is not a villain. She is a woman who made a terrible decision for the most human of reasons, and she has been living with the weight of it every single day since. Han Seo-jun is 32, the sole heir to Han Corporation, one of the 3 most powerful conglomerates in South Korea. His company has its hands in technology, pharmaceuticals, real estate, and if the whispers in Seoul's financial circles are correct, considerably less legal enterprises that nobody discusses in daylight. He is not the kind of man who appears on tabloid covers, because the kind of power he holds does not need publicity. It breathes without it. He is tall, controlled, with the kind of jaw that looks like it was carved from a decision rather than bone. He does not smile often. When he does, people who know him well say it never quite reaches his eyes, not since Park Ji-yeon died 3 years ago in a car accident that Seo-jun still blames himself for because he was the one who asked her to drive across the city in a storm to reach him. He has not let anyone close since. He runs his empire with precision and a coldness that his grandmother calls a waste of a perfectly good heart. His grandmother, Han Bok-soon, is 78 years old and absolutely terrifying. She is 4 feet 11 inches of pure manipulation dressed in silk hanboks and lavender perfume. She drinks barley tea, speaks in proverbs, and has been managing the Han family like a military operation since she was 30. She loves Seo-jun more than anything on this earth. That love is also the most dangerous thing about her. 6 months before this story begins, Bok-soon received a diagnosis. Stage 3. Her doctors gave her a timeline that she told no one about, not even Seo-jun. She took that information, tucked it into the part of herself where she stores all the things she refuses to cry about, and she made a plan. The Han family inheritance clause, written by Seo-jun's late grandfather and never updated because nobody thought it would ever matter, states that if the primary heir has no biological child by the time the heir turns 33, control of Han Corporation transfers to a board of trustees for a period no less than 7 years. Seo-jun turns 33 in 11 months. He has no wife, no girlfriend, no interest in either. Bok-soon has been trying to arrange introductions for 2 years and Seo-jun has shut down every single attempt with the same quiet finality that he shuts down boardroom opposition. So she stopped asking him. And she found Vanessa. The approach was not dramatic. There was no shadowed meeting in a parking garage. A Han Corporation legal representative contacted Vanessa through the hospital's administrative office, presenting it as a surrogacy arrangement for an anonymous donor client. The paperwork was pristine. The lawyers were expensive. The terms were clear. Medical procedure only. No contact with the biological family. Full anonymity guaranteed. Compensation of 500 million Korean won, the equivalent of roughly 380,000 US dollars, deposited in 3 installments. Vanessa sat with that offer for 9 days. She called her father on day 3, not to tell him about the offer, just to hear his voice. He sounded tired. He mentioned the clinic had changed his appointment schedule again. She listened to him downplay his exhaustion the way fathers do when they think their children are watching, and she made her decision before she put the phone down. She told herself it was clinical. She told herself she would never meet the biological father. She told herself that this was not so different from any other anonymous donation arrangement. She signed on day 9. The procedure was done at a private clinic outside the city. Vanessa returned to her apartment, made herself fried plantains and scrambled eggs because that is what her mother used to make her when she needed comfort, and she told herself that she was fine. She was not fine, but she was pregnant. Inciting incident. 7 weeks after the procedure, Vanessa is at the nurses' station on the 4th floor of Seoul National University Medical Center when the announcement goes through the building like electricity through water. Han Corporation is in preliminary discussions to acquire a 40% stake in the hospital group. There will be a site visit. Senior executives and the Han heir himself will tour the facility on Thursday. Vanessa does not think much of it. She has more immediate concerns, specifically the fact that her pregnancy is becoming harder to hide from her colleagues, and the fact that she has been feeling dizzy every morning in a way that her medical training cannot make less alarming when it is happening to her own body. Thursday arrives. Vanessa is in the middle of briefing a junior nurse when she hears the shift in the corridor, that particular charged silence that moves ahead of important people the way weather moves ahead of storms. She looks up, and then she sees him. Han Seo-jun walks into the 4th floor corridor flanked by 2 men in suits, accompanied by the hospital's executive director, who is speaking with the slightly too eager energy of someone who needs this deal to go through. Seo-jun is not looking at the executive director. He is scanning the floor with the measured attention of someone who is always assessing. And then his eyes land on Vanessa. It is 3 seconds. Maybe 4. She looks away first. Her hands are cold. Her heart is doing something medically interesting. Because the face she is looking at is the face from the Han Corporation profile she found online 9 days after she signed the contract and immediately wished she had never searched for. She had told herself at the time that seeing his face made it worse, that she would never look again. She had kept that promise to herself. But she had not prepared for seeing him in person, in her hospital, on her floor, 11 steps away from the nurse's station where she is standing with his child growing inside her. She picks up the nearest patient file and walks in the opposite direction. She makes it to the stairwell before her legs feel uncertain. Vanessa stands there on the landing between the 4th and 5th floor and has a very quiet, very contained crisis. She breathes in for 4 counts, out for 4 counts, the way her therapist taught her. She reminds herself that he does not know. He cannot know. The contract guaranteed anonymity. He is here for a business acquisition, not for her. She is one nurse in a hospital of hundreds. She will not come to his attention. She believes this completely until she rounds the corner 20 minutes later and finds Han Seo-jun standing at the end of the corridor alone, looking at a framed photograph on the wall, which is a black and white print of the hospital as it looked in 1962. Everyone else from his party has moved on. It is just him and the photograph and the quiet. And then Vanessa's patient call alert goes off at full volume from the room directly beside where he is standing, and she has to walk past him to get to it. She keeps her eyes forward. She is professional. She is calm. She pushes the door open. Behind her, she hears nurse. She stops. She turns. Han Seo-jun is looking at her with an expression she cannot fully read. Not suspicion. Not recognition. Something more like curiosity, the way someone looks when something has caught their attention and they are not yet sure why. The patient in room 412, he says. She has been trying to get someone's attention for the last 8 minutes. I counted. Vanessa blinks. I was just going to her. I know, he says. I am telling you so that whoever is responsible for that section of the floor understands the gap. It is not aggressive. It is not rude. It is simply stated, the way someone states a fact when they are used to facts being acted upon immediately. Vanessa looks at him for exactly 1 second longer than she should. Noted, she says, and she goes to her patient. She does not let herself think about the way he was still watching when she closed the door. That evening, Vanessa calls the number on the Han Corporation legal document she has kept buried at the bottom of her desk drawer. The line connects to an answering service. She leaves a message that says she has concerns about the arrangement and needs to speak with someone urgently. She waits for a callback that does not come that night. What comes instead, at 7 the next morning, is a handwritten note slipped under her apartment door. It reads, in careful Korean that she is just fluent enough to understand, everything is in order. Do not reach out again. Your next installment will be transferred as scheduled. Discretion protects everyone. There is no signature. Vanessa puts the note in the same drawer as the contract and goes to work. Rising tension. Han Seo-jun returns to the hospital 4 more times over the following 3 weeks, and each time Vanessa becomes more convinced that the universe has a specific and personal grudge against her. The second visit, she is in the hospital cafeteria eating lunch when his team comes through on what the hospital administrator calls a facilities audit. She keeps her head down. He does not see her. The third visit, she is less lucky. There is a minor emergency on the floor, a patient in distress during what should have been a routine procedure, and the chaos means all available nurses are visible and active in a way that cannot be avoided. Seo-jun is in the corridor when they wheel the patient past, and Vanessa is running beside the gurney calling out the patient's stats to the attending physician. She does not have time to be invisible. When the situation stabilizes and she emerges from the room 40 minutes later, slightly breathless, her hair escaping its bun, she nearly walks directly into him. He steps back. She steps back. There is a moment. The patient, he says. Stable, she says. Because of course that is the first thing she tells him. Something shifts in his expression. You are the same nurse from last week. There are a lot of nurses here. You have a specific way of moving when there is an emergency, he says. Like everything else disappears. He says this almost to himself, as though he did not intend to say it out loud. Vanessa does not know what to do with that. I have to write up my report. Of course, he says, and steps aside. She goes to the nurse's station. Her hands are shaking slightly, not from the emergency, which she has handled calmly, but from this, which she has not. The fourth visit is a hospital board presentation that Vanessa should not even be attending except that her floor supervisor is on sick leave and she has been temporarily elevated to a senior representative role that requires her presence in the boardroom for the nursing section of the presentation. She sits 3 seats down from Han Seo-jun for 45 minutes and stares at the projection screen so determinately that her eyes begin to water. He speaks twice during the presentation. Both times, his voice lands somewhere in her chest and stays there. Afterward, in the corridor, he appears beside her without announcement. You were the nurse in the presentation, he says. As though he has been thinking about this. I was the nursing representative for my floor, yes. You speak Korean well. I have been here 2 years. Most foreign medical staff at this level are rotated out within 18 months, he says. You stayed. She looks at him properly for the first time in weeks. I liked Seoul. What do you like about it? The question is so unexpectedly direct that she answers without thinking. That nobody performs for each other here the way they do in America. Everyone is performing everywhere, but here at least they are performing something they actually care about. He is quiet for a moment. That is either very perceptive or very wrong. Probably both, she says. And then, impossibly, Han Seo-jun almost smiles. It is barely there. A fraction of a degree at the corner of his mouth. But Vanessa sees it and it does something to her that she absolutely cannot afford. She excuses herself. She takes the stairs. She calls her best friend Amara in Atlanta on her break and speaks in very rapid Igbo for 17 minutes about absolutely everything except the thing she actually needs to talk about. The fifth visit is not a visit at all. It is a coincidence, which is somehow worse. Vanessa is at a pharmacy near her apartment on a Saturday morning when she sees him. He is alone, no security, no suits, wearing a dark coat and holding a paper bag, standing at the end of the aisle looking at the shelf of teas with the slightly lost expression of someone whose household staff usually handles domestic tasks. He has not seen her yet. She should leave. She should turn around and come back later. Instead, she says, "The barley ones are better than they look." He turns. The recognition is immediate, and she watches it travel across his face, that shift from stranger to someone specific. "You shop here," he says. "I live 3 blocks away." "I am buying tea for my grandmother," he says, and there is something in his voice when he says the word grandmother that is not simple. "She asked me to bring her the kind from this area specifically. She grew up in this neighborhood." Vanessa reaches past him because the shelf is to his left and she is closer, and picks up a particular brand. This one. It is locally sourced and the flavor is stronger. Elderly people usually prefer it because it tastes the way they remember. He takes it from her hand. Their fingers do not touch. But they almost do. "You know a lot about elderly preferences," he says. "I am a nurse." "Right." He looks at the tin. "Thank you, nurse." "Vanessa," she says. She does not know why she says it. She immediately wishes she had not. He looks at her. "Han Seo-jun." "I know who you are," she says. "I know," he says. "You have known since the first day. You are good at pretending otherwise." She goes very still. "That is not an accusation," he says. "Most people perform differently when I enter a room. You performed ordinary. It was the most obvious thing about you." She does not know if that is a compliment or a deduction or both. She says, "I hope your grandmother enjoys the tea," and she walks out of the pharmacy with a calm and measured step that costs her everything. She calls the legal number again that evening. Same answering service. She leaves a message that she needs to terminate the arrangement and is willing to return the first installment. She does not specify why. This time, someone calls back within the hour. A woman's voice, smooth and unhurried, tells her that the arrangement cannot be terminated, that the legal documents she signed are binding, and that the family is aware she is now employed at the same hospital involved in the acquisition, and that steps have been taken to ensure there is no conflict. When Vanessa asks what that means, the woman says, "It means everything is being managed. You only need to do what you agreed to do, which is nothing." Vanessa hangs up. She sits on her kitchen floor for a while. She is 12 weeks pregnant. She has not told anyone. She has been wearing her scrubs a size up and attributing her changed eating habits to a dairy intolerance she invented. She has an appointment at a private clinic on Tuesday under a different name as per the contract terms. She has $380,000 worth of reasons to stay quiet. And she is completely, catastrophically falling for the father of her child who does not know she exists in any meaningful way. If you are new to Afro K Chronicles and this story already has you gripping your phone, do yourself a favor and subscribe now. Hit the bell so you do not miss the second half of this story because I promise you, it gets so much more intense from here. Han Seo-jun begins visiting the hospital more frequently. The acquisition is moving into due diligence and his personal involvement increases. He establishes a temporary office in the administrative wing and is present 3 to 4 days a week. Vanessa's floor rotation does not change. He finds her again on a Tuesday. She is sitting in the small courtyard attached to the east wing, eating rice from a container, earphones in, pretending she is somewhere else entirely. She hears the bench beside her shift and pulls out one earphone. He is sitting approximately 2 feet away with a coffee cup that suggests the hospital's cafe, looking out at the small garden with an expression that is probably as close to peaceful as he gets. "You are not supposed to be in this area," she says. "It is the medical staff courtyard." "I know," he says. She waits for him to explain. He does not. Then why are you here? The administrative wing is loud today, he says. Someone is celebrating a birthday. He pauses. I dislike enforced celebration. She looks at him sideways. You dislike people being happy? I dislike being required to perform happiness I do not feel, he says. There is a difference. The tea lady in your life would agree with that, Vanessa says, meaning his grandmother, and she realizes a half-second too late that she should not have said it, that it references their pharmacy conversation in a way that acknowledges she has been thinking about it. He looks at her. She did enjoy the tea. Good. She asked where I found it. I told her a nurse recommended it. He pauses. She asked if the nurse was pretty. The air changes. What did you tell her? Vanessa asks, because she is apparently determined to make every bad decision available to her. I told her the nurse was extremely confident, he says. And there it is again. That almost smile. They sit in the courtyard for another 12 minutes. They do not talk much. It is the most comfortable Vanessa has felt with another person in Seoul in 2 years. This is the problem. Over the following 2 weeks, it becomes a quiet, unspoken pattern. He appears in the courtyard on his break. She is often there. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they do not. She learns that he takes his coffee without sugar because he decided sweetness was an indulgence he could not afford during a particularly brutal year at 24, and she thinks that is possibly the saddest thing she has ever heard stated as a simple fact. He learns that she listens to old Fela Kuti records when she needs to think, that she can cook exactly 3 meals well and everything else only adequately, that she misses rain the way people miss people. He tells her nothing personal. And then he tells her something that pulls the floor from under her. It is a Wednesday overcast, the kind of Seoul afternoon that feels like the city is thinking. He is sitting across from her and he says, without preamble, my grandmother is ill. Vanessa goes very still. She has not told me directly, he says. But I know her. I know what managing behavior looks like. She has been moving things into place for months. He is quiet. She is trying to arrange something. I do not yet know what. Vanessa puts down her food container. I am sorry, she says. About her being ill. He looks at her. You mean that? Of course I mean it. Most people say it because it is the correct thing to say. Most people have not watched someone they loved be sick, she says quietly. He goes still. Who did you lose? She almost does not answer. My mother. When I was 17. He is quiet for a long time. I am sorry, he says. And he means it. She can hear the difference. This is the moment Vanessa Adiz Cole realizes she is not falling for Han Seo-jun. She has already fallen. This was not the beginning. This was just when she looked down and saw the ground was gone. She goes home that evening and sits with the weight of everything she is carrying. The contract. The secret. The pregnancy that is starting to show in ways she is running out of ways to manage. The fact that the man sitting in that courtyard talking to her about his grandmother is the same man whose grandmother orchestrated the entire situation. The fact that he is kind, in the hidden way that people are kind when they have been hurt enough to understand that softness is not weakness. The fact that she is lying to him by existing near him the way she does. She writes a letter that night. Not to the legal team. To Han Bok-soon directly. She does not have an address. She writes it anyway, in her journal, because she needs to put the words somewhere. It reads, I understand why you did this. I think I even understand the love that made you do it. But you built this on something that will break, and when it breaks it will break your grandson first, and he has already been broken enough. She does not know that 3 days later, Han Bok-soon will arrange to accidentally encounter Vanessa outside the hospital. She does not know that the grandmother has known exactly who she is from the first day Seo-jun mentioned a nurse who recommended tea. She does not know that Bok-soon has decided to change the plan entirely. And she does not know that Seo-jun, in his temporary office on the 3rd floor of the administrative wing, has told his assistant to arrange the hospital schedule so that his daily breaks align with the medical staff courtyard rotation. He knows which courtyard she prefers. He is known for a week. Vanessa is leaving the hospital on a Thursday evening, 14 weeks pregnant, tired in the particular way that is not just physical, when a black car pulls up beside her at the crosswalk. The window goes down, and the woman inside is small, silk-wrapped, lavender-scented, with eyes so sharp they could cut paper. Han Bok-soon. Get in, the old woman says. I have been waiting for the right moment, and I am 78 years old, so time is a luxury I have finished being patient about. Vanessa does not move. I know who you are. I know you know, Bok-soon says. I also know that you know I know. So let us stop performing and speak to each other properly. Against every intelligent instinct she possesses, Vanessa gets in the car. They sit in a tea house in Insadong for 1 hour. Bok-soon orders for both of them without asking. Vanessa sits across from this woman, the architect of her entire crisis, and waits. I chose you, Bok-soon says, because the profile said you were stubborn, principled, and not easily impressed by money or status. She sips her tea. The profile was correct. You are the only woman in 6 months of candidates who asked to read the contract 3 times before signing. That did not stop me from making a terrible decision, Vanessa says. No, Bok-soon says. But it tells me what kind of person you are under pressure. She sets down her cup. I am dying. My grandson does not know. The inheritance clause is real. All of that is true. She pauses. What is also true is that I have been watching my grandson disappear since Ji-yeon died, and I have been desperate enough to do something I am not entirely proud of. Vanessa stares at her. You are telling me this now because? Because he is looking at you, Bok-soon says simply. In the way he used to look at things before he stopped looking at things. And I did not plan that. That part is not my arrangement. She looks at Vanessa directly. That part is real. And it changes everything. Vanessa's voice is careful, controlled. What are you saying? I am saying, Bok-soon says, that the contract you signed was about an heir. But what is actually happening, what I am watching happen, is something else. She is quiet. And I am asking you, woman to woman, outside of every contract and legal document, what you intend to do about it. The tea is good. Vanessa drinks it because she needs something to do with her hands. He doesn't know, Vanessa says, about any of this. No. If he finds out, it will destroy him. Yes, Bok-soon says. It will. She does not look away. And he will still find out. The only question is whether he finds out from you or from the world. Vanessa closes her eyes. She thinks about the courtyard. She thinks about the almost smile. She thinks about a man who bought tea for his grandmother on a Saturday morning because she asked for a specific neighborhood brand. She thinks about the contract at the bottom of her drawer. She opens her eyes. Why are you here? She asks. Really? Bok-soon is quiet for a moment. Then she says, because I am his grandmother. And I have done something that could hurt him terribly. And I need someone in that hospital who understands the full picture. She pauses. And because you are carrying my great-grandchild, and you look like a woman who has been carrying something alone for much too long. Vanessa's breath catches. Not because of the words. Because of the way the old woman says them, with the particular weight of someone who knows what it costs to carry things alone. What do you want from me? Vanessa says. Nothing, Bok-soon says. And for the first time in this entire story, that word feels true. I want nothing from you that you do not choose to give. She reaches across the table and places her hand over Vanessa's. Her hand is small and very warm. But I want you to know that whatever you decide, I will not leave you to face it alone. I made this situation. I will not walk away from the consequences. They sit there in the tea house in Insadong as evening falls over Seoul, the grandmother and the woman carrying her family's future, and neither of them says anything for a long time. The car outside is still waiting. The courtyard at the hospital is empty for the first time in 2 weeks. And in his office on the 3rd floor of the administrative wing, Han Seo-jun is staring at his phone, reading a message from his assistant that says his break time was cleared as he requested. And he is thinking about a woman who listens to Fela Kuti records and misses rain the way people miss people. He is thinking about the thing he has not let himself think in 3 years. He is thinking about what it would mean to let someone matter again. He does not know that in a tea house 20 minutes away, the two women who hold the answer to every question he does not yet know he is asking are sitting across from each other with cooling tea between them and a secret that is about to change everything. He does not know. Not yet. If you are completely gripped by this story right now, which I know you are, subscribe to Afro K Chronicles and turn on your notifications because the second half of this story, the confrontation, the confession, the moment everything breaks open, is coming next. You do not want to miss what happens when Seo-jun finds out. The tea house in Insadong closes at 9 in the evening. Vanessa and Bok-soon are the last customers to leave. The young server has refilled their tea twice without being asked, sensing the weight of whatever is happening at that corner table, giving them space the way Koreans give space to serious things. When they finally stand to leave, Bok-soon buttons her coat slowly, the way old people button things, with the deliberateness of someone who has learned not to rush the small moments. She looks at Vanessa one last time before they step outside. "You are angry with me," she says. It is not a question. "Yes," Vanessa says. "Because she is done performing otherwise." "Good," Bok-soon says. "Anger means you care about what was done to you." Women who stop being angry have usually stopped caring about themselves. She ties her coat belt. "I prefer you angry. It means you will fight for the right things when the time comes." "And what are the right things?" Vanessa asks. Bok-soon looks at her with those paper-cutting eyes. "You already know. That is what frightens you." The car takes Vanessa back to her apartment building and waits until she is inside before pulling away. She stands in her entrance hall with her shoes still on and her bag still on her shoulder, and she breathes. In for 4. Out for 4. In for 4. Out for 4. Then she sits on her kitchen floor for the second time in this story, and she lets herself feel everything she has been managing and containing and professionally suppressing for 14 weeks. The fear, the guilt, the loneliness of carrying a secret that has no one to share it with. The specific grief of wanting something she has no right to want, which is Han Seo-jun, looking at her the way he looks at her in that courtyard, without the weight of everything she is hiding between them. She cries properly, for the first time since this began. Not performance crying. The real kind that comes from somewhere below the ribcage and does not care about being dignified. When she is finished, she washes her face, drinks a glass of water, and makes a decision. She is going to tell him. Not tonight. Not without preparation. But she is going to tell him, because Bok-soon is right. He will find out eventually, and the difference between him finding out from her and finding out from the world is the difference between something that might survive and something that absolutely will not. She owes him the truth. She owes herself the weight off. She does not sleep well that night. But she sleeps. The next morning she goes to work and Han Seo-jun is in the courtyard at the exact time she arrives, which means he got there early, which means he planned it. He has 2 coffees. He holds one out to her without saying anything. She sits. She takes the coffee. She does not trust herself to speak immediately, so she looks at the small garden and watches a bird do something determined with a twig. "You look like you did not sleep," he says. Observant. "It is my job to notice things other people overlook," he says. Then, more quietly, "Are you all right?" That question. The simple, direct sincerity of it, from a man who does not ask questions he does not mean. It nearly undoes her right there on the bench. "I will be," she says. Which is the most honest thing she has said to him since they met. He looks at her for a moment. That is a different answer from fine. "Yes," she says. "It is." He does not push. He sits with her in the quiet and drinks his coffee and lets her have whatever she needs to have without requiring her to explain it. This is possibly the most devastating thing about Han Seo-jun, that he instinctively knows how to hold space for people the way someone does when they have needed space held for them, and no one did it. Vanessa looks at this man and thinks, "I am going to break your heart. And I am so sorry." Now, before we get to the moment everything shatters, I need to ask you something, because I genuinely want to know what you think. If you were Vanessa right now, sitting on that bench with the truth burning a hole through your chest, would you tell him immediately, wait until the timing is right, or find another way out entirely? Drop your answer in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of decision that separates the people who survive hard situations from the people who get buried by them. And subscribe to Afro K Chronicles if you have not already, because the comment section on this channel is a whole conversation. 3 days pass. Vanessa rehearses what she is going to say in the mirror every morning. She writes versions of it in her journal and crosses them all out. She calls Amara in Atlanta and speaks in circles around the actual subject until Amara says, in the flat tone of a best friend who has reached her limit, "Vanessa, what did you do?" And Vanessa tells her. The silence on the line is long enough to be its own answer. "Tell me you are joking," Amara says. "I am not joking. Tell me the man does not know. He does not know." Another silence. "And you have feelings for him?" Amara. "Answer the question." "Yes," Vanessa says. Very quietly. Amara exhales. Okay. Here is what you are going to do. You are going to tell him before your body makes the decision for you, because you are 16 weeks pregnant, Vanessa, not 6. The clock on this secret has already run out. You just have not heard the alarm yet. This is the thing about best friends who love you. They say the thing you already know in the voice that makes it impossible to keep pretending you do not know it. Vanessa sets the date in her head. Friday. She will tell him on Friday. In the courtyard, which is their place now, even though she has never said those words out loud, because it is the only place she has ever felt like herself around him. She almost makes it to Friday. On Thursday evening, she is walking to the elevator after her shift when she hears voices from the partially open door of the hospital director's office. She is not eavesdropping. She is simply walking slowly because her feet hurt and she is tired. But then she hears her name. Not Vanessa. Her full name. Vanessa Adiz Cole. Spoken by someone she does not recognize, in a tone that is being used to present information. She stops. Through the gap in the door she can hear two voices. One is the hospital director, and the other she cannot place, but the words are very clear. The surrogacy arrangement involving the Han family and a staff member named Vanessa Adiz Cole has become a liability. The legal team is advising that the acquisition due diligence may surface the connection if the document trail is not managed. Mr. Han's office needs to be informed before the board review. A pause. Mr. Han does not know, the director says. He will need to. Before Friday. Vanessa walks away from that door with the measured, careful steps of someone who is holding a very full glass and cannot afford to spill anything. She gets into the elevator. The doors close. She looks at her own reflection in the mirrored panel and watches herself understand that Friday is not her timeline anymore. The clock just ran out. She calls Boksoon. She has the number because the old woman pressed a card into her hand outside the tea house with the same energy as someone who has already planned for this exact call. Boksoon answers on the second ring. They are going to tell him tomorrow, Vanessa says. Before I can. A pause. Then Boksoon says, "Where are you?" In the hospital elevator. Go home. Do not make any decisions tonight. Let me see what I can do about tomorrow's timeline. You cannot manage this one, Vanessa says. You know that. Another pause. Longer. Yes, the old woman says. I know. I am going to tell him myself. Tonight. Vanessa. He deserves to hear it from me. Not from a legal team managing a liability. Boksoon is quiet for a moment. When she speaks again, her voice has something in it that Vanessa has not heard from her before. Something soft and frightened, the sound of a grandmother who has finally understood the full cost of what she built. Be careful with him, she says. He holds pain differently from other people. He goes very quiet. Do not mistake the quiet for not feeling. I know, Vanessa says. And she does. She texts him from the lobby. It takes her 4 attempts to write something that does not sound like either a professional message or a goodbye, And what she ends up with is, "Can we talk tonight?" Not the hospital. Somewhere else. It is important. He responds in 4 minutes. An address. 8 o'clock. The address is a small restaurant in Yeonam-dong, the kind of place with wooden tables and low lighting and food that tastes like someone's grandmother made it. He is already there when she arrives, sitting in the corner with his coat still on, which tells her he got there recently and did not want to seem like he had been waiting. She sits across from him. He looks at her face and something in his expression shifts. She watches him read her the way he reads rooms, that quiet, total attention. "Whatever you are about to say," he says, "you have been carrying it for a long time." "Yes," she says. "Then say it. Quickly is better than slowly for things like this." Vanessa puts her hands flat on the table. She looks at him directly, because he deserves that at minimum. "I need to tell you something about myself and your family. And I need you to let me finish before you respond, because if you stop me, I do not think I will be able to start again." He goes very still. "My family. Your grandmother specifically." Something moves behind his eyes. He leans back slightly, the way people do when they are preparing to absorb impact. "Tell me." And she tells him. She tells him everything. From the legal approach, to the 9 days she sat with the decision, to her father's dialysis bills, to the clinic outside the city, to the morning she looked up Han Corporation and found his face. She tells him about every courtyard conversation, knowing what she knew. She tells him about the pharmacy, about the tea, about the way she felt when he almost smiled for the first time. She tells him about Boksoon in the car, the tea house in Insadong, the conversation that changed everything. She tells him she is 16 weeks pregnant with his child. She tells him she heard the conversation in the director's office and knew she had to come to him tonight. She tells him all of it. She does not cry. She made a decision before she walked in that she would not cry, because this is not about her feelings right now. This is about his right to the truth delivered clearly. When she finishes, the restaurant has gotten quieter around them. Or maybe the world has just receded the way it does when something enormous happens in a small space. Han Seo-jun does not speak. He is very still. His hands are on the table, and she can see the way his jaw has set, that controlled tension of someone holding something massive in place through sheer force of will. The silence goes on long enough that the server appears and then disappears again, sensing the atmosphere. "Say something," Vanessa says finally. "Please." He looks at her. His eyes are the particular dark of a sky right before weather. "How much?" he says. His voice is flat and very quiet. "How much did she pay you?" It is not the question she expected. That is not the important part. It is the part one am asking about. She tells him the amount. He nods slowly, the way someone nods when information is confirming something they already suspected about the world. "And the contract. It is binding." "Yes." "You tried to terminate it." "Twice." He is quiet again. Then he says, "You were going to tell me on Friday." "Yes." "Why Friday?" "Because I needed to find the right words and I ran out of time to find them." He looks at her for a long moment. "Were any of it real?" he says. "The courtyard. The conversations." And here is where Vanessa could protect herself. Here is where she could be strategic. But she has just spent 40 minutes telling this man the truth, and she is not going to stop now. "All of it," she says. "Every single conversation. Everything I told you about myself was real. Everything I felt was real. The contract was not. The secret was not. But everything between us in that courtyard, that was the only thing in this entire situation that was entirely mine." He stands up. He puts money on the table without looking at it. He picks up his coat. He looks at her one last time, and his face is so carefully controlled that it tells her exactly how much he is feeling. "Do not come to the courtyard tomorrow," he says. And he walks out. "Here is what I want to ask you right now, because I genuinely need to know what you think. Do you believe Seo-jun has the right to be this angry, or do you think he is punishing Vanessa for something that was primarily his grandmother's doing?" Think about that carefully and drop your answer below, because the comment section on this story has been incredible and your perspective actually matters here. And if you are watching this on Afro K Chronicles for the first time, subscribe now because we are about to go somewhere very painful and very beautiful at the same time. Vanessa does not go to the courtyard the next day. She goes to work. She does her job with the same precision and care she always brings to it because her patients did not cause her problems and do not deserve less than her best. She eats lunch at the nurse's station. She does not look toward the administrative wing. She goes home and she calls her father. "Hey, baby girl," he says. He sounds better today. Sometimes he sounds better. "Hey, daddy." She sits by her window. The Seoul evening is doing something beautiful with clouds that she would normally photograph. "How are you feeling?" "Strong," he says, in the voice that means medium but not terrible. "You sound tired." "Long week." "You working too hard over there?" "Probably." He laughs, and it is the best sound she has heard in days. "Your mother used to say you came out of the womb already scheduled. You made a feeding schedule, Vanessa. You were 4 days old." She laughs. It surprises her. "Daddy," she says, "I need to tell you something." She does not tell him everything. She tells him she is pregnant. She tells him it is complicated. She tells him she made a decision that felt necessary at the time and has become something much larger than she planned. Her father is quiet in the way fathers are quiet when they are choosing between their feelings and their child's need for support. "Are you safe?" he asks. "Yes." "Is the baby healthy?" "Yes." "Very." "Then everything else," he says, "is a problem that can be solved." You hear me? My daughter does not have unsolvable problems. She has problems that have not been solved yet. Vanessa presses her hand flat against the window glass and watches Seoul breathe below her. "I hear you, Daddy. Come home soon," he says. "Bring my grandchild to meet me." She cries after she hangs up. But differently this time. Less like drowning and more like release. 2 days pass. Seojun is not in the courtyard. The administrative wing is quiet in the way that suggests he is not coming in, or is coming in through a different entrance. Vanessa hears from a colleague that the acquisition timeline has been paused, pending internal review. Nobody says why. On the 3rd day, she receives a formal letter through the hospital's legal department. It is from Han Corporation's legal team. It informs her that the surrogacy contract is under review, that her cooperation is requested in a formal meeting, and that until the review is complete, all terms of the original agreement remain binding. It is signed by a lawyer she has never spoken to, not by Seojun. This, more than anything, tells her where they are. She hires her own lawyer. A small firm in Mapo that a colleague recommended, run by a woman named Attorney Young who has the energy of someone who has fought large corporations before and found it entertaining. Attorney Young reads the Han contract in 40 minutes and looks up with an expression of professional interest. "This is an unusual document," she says. "Yes." The anonymity clause has already been broken, which weakens their position considerably. She sets it down. "Who broke it?" "His grandmother told me who the biological father was. Indirectly, but clearly." "Did she do so in a way that can be documented?" "We met in a tea house." She spoke freely. Attorney Young almost smiles. "Good. That is very good." She folds her hands. "Ms. Cole, I want to be direct with you. The contract has vulnerabilities. But legal battles with conglomerates are long and expensive even when you have strong grounds." She pauses. "Is there any possibility of resolving this outside of formal proceedings?" Vanessa thinks about a man walking out of a restaurant with his coat and his carefully controlled face. "I do not know yet," she says. What happens next does not come from the legal team. It does not come from Bok-soon, who has been respectfully silent for 4 days, which for Han Bok-soon is the equivalent of anyone else lying face down on the floor. It comes from Seojun himself. On a Thursday evening, 11 days after the restaurant, Vanessa is leaving the hospital and he is standing outside. Not in a car. Not with security. Just standing on the pavement in his coat, hands in his pockets, looking like a man who has made a decision that cost him something. She stops. He looks at her. I spoke to my grandmother. Okay, she says carefully. She told me everything. The diagnosis. The clause. Why she chose you specifically. He pauses. She also told me what she said to you in the tea house. That she would not leave you to face the consequences alone. She said that, Vanessa confirms. She was crying when she told me, he says. I have not seen my grandmother cry since my grandfather's funeral. He looks down for a moment, then back at her. I have been angry at the wrong person. Vanessa does not move. She is afraid that if she moves, something will break. You are not angry at the wrong person, she says carefully. I signed the contract, Seo Jun. I made a choice. Your anger at me is legitimate. I know, he says. I am still angry at you. I know. But I am angrier at myself, he says. For being the kind of man my grandmother felt she could not come to. For making my grief into a wall that left her feeling like the only option was to go around me. He exhales. She is dying, Vanessa. And she spent her remaining energy managing a situation that should not have existed if I had been present enough to notice she was afraid. The pavement between them holds a lot of weight right now. How is she? Vanessa asks. Frightened, he says. And stubborn. And already trying to manage my reaction to her diagnosis. A beat. She asked about you. First thing. Before she explained anything, she asked if you were all right. Something warm moves through Vanessa's chest. She is a complicated woman. She is the most complicated person I have ever known, he says. And I say that as someone who spends a significant amount of time with people who run illegal enterprises. Vanessa blinks. You just casually said that. You already knew. I suspected. Now you know, he says. And there is the fraction of something at the corner of his mouth. Not quite the almost smile. Something more fragile. Something that is trying to exist in a situation that has not yet earned lightness. They stand on the pavement outside the hospital as Seoul does what Seoul does in the evening, filling up with light and motion and the particular energy of a city that never fully exhales. I do not know what I want from you, he says. I want to be honest about that. I do not have a plan for this. I am not a man who does well without a plan. I know, she says. I am not asking you for one. I need time, he says. You can have time. I also need you to know, he says, and he stops, like the next words cost more than the ones before, that the conversations in the courtyard. What you said about them. I need you to know they were real for me too. He looks at her directly. Whatever else the situation is. That part was real. Vanessa breathes. Okay, she says. Softly. Okay, he says. They do not resolve anything that evening on the pavement outside Seoul National University Medical Center. There is no resolution available yet. Too much has happened. Too much is still happening. There is a baby that is becoming more real every day, a grandmother who is dying and full of love that expressed itself badly, a contract that needs to be dismantled carefully, and two people who found something genuine inside a situation built on manipulation. But they stand there together for a few more minutes. And that is something. And here is my final question for you today, the one I really want you to sit with. When someone does something wrong for reasons you understand, at what point does understanding become something like forgiveness? Not excuse. Not amnesia. But the actual choice to move forward with what is real rather than stay anchored to what was wrong. Tell me what you think below, because this is the question this entire story is asking. And subscribe to Afro K Chronicles so you are there for the climax and resolution, because I promise you the ending of this story is going to make everything you just went through worth it. Vanessa goes home that evening and sits at her kitchen table, not on the floor this time. She opens her journal to the letter she wrote to Boksoon, the one she never sent. She reads it once. Then she writes below it, in the quiet of her Seoul apartment with the city moving outside her window and a new life moving inside her body. She writes, I think the right things might still be possible. I am not sure yet. But for the first time since this began, I want to find out. She closes the journal. She makes herself fried plantains and scrambled eggs. She sleeps. And in a house in one of Seoul's quieter neighborhoods, Han Seojun sits beside his grandmother's bed while she pretends to sleep, because she is not actually sleeping, she is listening to make sure he stays. He knows she is not sleeping. He says nothing. He stays. And in the morning, when she finally opens her eyes and looks at him with that paper-cutting gaze, he says, "I am not going anywhere, Halmoni." She reaches over and pats his hand twice. Very briskly. The way people who do not perform softness express it anyway. "I know," she says. "I raised you." The story is not over. The hardest parts are still coming. The climax, the confrontation with the board, the contract dissolution, the moment Seojun must choose between his pride and his heart publicly, the moment Vanessa must decide whether she is staying in Seoul or going home, and the resolution that neither of them could have reached without first going through every terrible and beautiful thing that brought them here. But that is part 3. And if you are still here, if this story has you feeling exactly the way a good romance should make you feel, uncertain and hopeful and slightly out of breath, then you already know what to do. Subscribe to Afro K Chronicles, turn on your notifications, and meet me back here for the finale. Because Han Seojun is not done surprising you. And neither is Vanessa Adiz Cole. The week after the pavement conversation is quiet in the way that things are quiet before they reorganize themselves into something new. Vanessa goes to work. She does her job. She eats properly because she has a person inside her who does not care about complicated situations and simply requires nutrition and rest. She speaks to Attorney Young twice. She sends Boksoon a single text message that says only, "He stayed with you. I am glad." Boksoon responds with a photograph of the tea tin from the pharmacy. No words. Just the photograph. Vanessa stares at it for a long time and feels something loosen in her chest. Seojun sends her one message during that week. It arrives on a Wednesday at 11:47 at night, which tells her he has been awake thinking, because that is not an hour for casual communication. It says, "My grandmother wants to know if you are eating enough. I told her I did not know. She told me that was unacceptable. I am passing the message along under protest." Vanessa reads it 3 times. Then she responds, "Tell her yes. Tell her I had rice and soup and something green that I could not identify, but ate anyway because the vendor looked proud of it." He responds in 2 minutes. She says that is acceptable. She also says the unidentified green thing is probably Minori, and it is good for you. Vanessa sets her phone down and smiles at her ceiling for longer than she will ever admit. This is where the redemption arc lives. Not in grand gestures. Not in speeches. In a grandmother passing messages through a son who walks out of restaurants and comes back anyway. In a woman who signed a terrible contract and chose truth over self-protection when it mattered. In the small, deliberate movements of 2 people deciding, without saying it directly, that they are not walking away from what is real. Now here is something I want you to think about before we get to the climax. We talk a lot about grand romantic moments, the declaration, the dramatic confession, the scene where everything becomes clear. But what about the small moments, the texts at midnight, the photograph of a tea tin, the almost smile on a hospital pavement? Do those small moments mean more to you than the big ones, or do you need the grand gesture to believe it is real? Tell me in the comments, because I think your answer says everything about how you love. And if you are watching this on Afro K Chronicles, subscribe now because the climax of this story is arriving and it is not what you expect. The Han Corporation board review happens on a Friday. Vanessa knows because Attorney Young tells her the date, and because the hospital corridor has the particular energy of an institution bracing itself. The acquisition is back on the table, but the terms have shifted. There are people on that board who know about the surrogacy contract and have decided it is leverage. Not because they care about Vanessa. Because they want to destabilize Seojun's position before the vote, introduce enough personal chaos to make him appear compromised, force him into a reactive posture where he is defending rather than leading. This is how power works in rooms Vanessa has never sat in. She understands it because Seo-jun explained it to her the evening before the review, standing in the hospital courtyard, which is their place again now, quietly and without announcement. They will use it publicly if I do not address it first, he says. They will frame it as a scandal. Hidden pregnancy. Secret arrangement. Heir produced through manipulation. He says this without drama, the way he states all facts. They want me to be ashamed of it. Are you? Vanessa asks. He looks at her. I am angry about how it began, he says. I am not ashamed of what exists now. She absorbs that. What are you going to do? I am going to walk into that room tomorrow and tell them the truth before they can weaponize it, he says. All of it. The contract, my grandmother's involvement, your role, where we are now. He pauses. I am not asking your permission. I am telling you because you deserve to know what is coming. And the contract? My legal team is dissolving it tonight, he says. Unilaterally. The terms are being voided and a separate arrangement is being drawn up, one that protects you legally and gives you full autonomy over every decision going forward. He looks at her directly. You will not be bound to anything you did not choose freely. That is not negotiable. Vanessa is quiet for a moment. You did not have to do that. Yes, he says, I did. This is who Han Seo-jun is under the empire and the cold jaw and the controlled silences. A man who, when he finally decides something is right, moves toward it without hesitation, even when it costs him. The board meeting happens the next morning. Vanessa is not there. She is on her shift, doing her job, wearing her scrubs and her professional face and checking on her patients with the focused care that has always been the most honest thing about her. But at 10:43 in the morning, her phone lights up with a message from a number she does not recognize. It says, "This is Boksoon. I borrowed someone's telephone because mine is too complicated." He walked in and told them everything before they could say a word. The room was very quiet. He was not quiet. I am told he was quite magnificent. I thought you should know. Vanessa reads this at the nurse's station and has to look at the ceiling for a moment to compose herself. The acquisition vote passes. Seo-jun wins it on his own terms, with the truth already in the room, leaving the board members who plan to use it as leverage with nothing in their hands. This is what happens when you remove the power from a secret by speaking it yourself. It becomes just a fact. And facts, stated plainly by someone who is not ashamed of them, are very difficult to weaponize. Vanessa's second question for you today, and I really want you to sit with this one. Have you ever watched someone choose honesty when lying would have been easier and more profitable, and felt something shift in how you saw them? Because that is exactly what is happening to Vanessa right now in real time. Tell me about a moment like that in your own life below. And make sure you are subscribed to Afro K Chronicles, because we are 90 seconds from the ending of this story. That evening Seo-jun comes to the courtyard and this time he sits closer than usual. Not dramatically. Just closer. The kind of shift that says something without requiring words. It is done, he says. I heard, she says. Your attorney will receive the amended documents tomorrow. Everything is in your name. All decisions about the pregnancy, the birth, the arrangements going forward, are yours unless you choose to share them. And if I choose to share them, she says. He looks at her. Then I am here. 3 words. Quiet. Certain. Carrying the full weight of a man who does not say things he does not mean. Vanessa looks at this person, this complicated, controlled, courtyard-sitting, midnight texting, boardroom truth-telling person, and she says, I am not going anywhere either. He exhales. It is the smallest sound. But it is the sound of something that has been held very tightly for a very long time, finally being set down. They sit together in the courtyard as Seoul goes golden around them. The small garden does its small garden things. A bird reappears with its twig, still determined, apparently unbothered by everything that has happened in the past several weeks. My grandmother wants to meet you properly, he says. Not in a tea house under complicated circumstances. At her home. For a meal. I have already met her, Vanessa says. She says that does not count because she was in manipulation mode and not hostess mode, and she wants a second impression. Vanessa laughs. It fills the courtyard. Seojun looks at her when she laughs, with the expression of someone who has just remembered what it feels like to be in the presence of something worth staying for. Okay, she says. Tell her okay. She will want to cook, he warns. She will make too much food and then criticize how you eat it. That sounds like every grandmother I have ever met, Vanessa says. She will also have opinions about the baby's name. She can have opinions, Vanessa says. She cannot have decisions. He almost smiles. Then he actually smiles. Not the fraction. Not the almost. The real one, full and rare and worth every single complicated thing that happened to get here. Vanessa sees it and she thinks, there it is. There is the thing his grandmother saw and refused to let disappear. There is the thing worth fighting through all of this to find. The story does not end with everything resolved. Vanessa still has a conversation to have with her father that involves a plane ticket and a meeting that will require patience and grace from everyone involved. Boksoon is still ill, and the timeline is still what it is, and grief is still coming for this family in a way that love can soften, but not prevent. There are still adjustments and negotiations, and the daily work of building something real between two people who started in the most complicated way imaginable. But here is what is also true. The contract is dissolved. The secret is gone. The baby is healthy and growing and will be born into a situation that is imperfect and honest and full of people who are choosing, every single day, to be present for it. And in a courtyard attached to the east wing of Seoul National University Medical Center. A woman who made a terrible decision for the most human of reasons and a man who almost let grief take everything from him are sitting together watching a bird build something out of very little, and neither of them is pretending to be anywhere else. My last question for you today, and this one is the one I will be thinking about long after this story ends. Is a love story still beautiful if it began in deception, if the people involved have chosen truth and stayed anyway? I believe it is. I believe the choice to stay, knowing everything, is actually where the real love story begins. Tell me if you agree below. This has been Afro K Chronicles. If this story gave you butterflies, broke your heart a little, and then put it back together, then you are exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Subscribe, turn on your notifications, share this with someone who needs a story this week, and I will see you in the next one. Because there is always another story. And on this channel, they are always worth staying for.